Hey everyone, I'm Grant the Rusty Autoholic guy and welcome back to the channel. So, today was a video I thought I was never going to be making, and that is to announce that I am no longer going to be running my Kubota V2403 turbo diesel in my 2006 right-hand drive TJ Wrangler. And this kind of came out of nowhere, and the reason for that is the way inspections might be changing in my area. So nothing is concrete yet, nothing has been officially changed by law, but they are now talking about doing a check where if your vehicle came with an OBD-II port originally from the factory, it must have a working OBD-II port to pass inspection where I live. I don't know if that's going to go through, but I can tell you right now, this Kubota engine is a completely mechanically injected diesel engine. I don't have a working OBD-II port. I yanked the computer out of this Wrangler back in 2018 when I started this whole swap, and I was this close to being done. I actually just got in my custom torque converter for the engine for my Ford 6-speed automatic, which is a Ford 6R80. So, in the last month, I've had to really scramble and kind of figure out what I'm doing. And what I've decided to do is go to this instead, which is a 2000 model ALH TDI engine. And the reason why I'm going with this is because there is a company in Canada that will sell you a standalone wiring harness with a custom tune on the ECU, so you can run this in pretty much whatever you want to swap it into. And here it is. I'd actually ordered this. I originally was going to use all of this for a completely different build. This was going to be the next big build I did on my channel. But the most important thing about this is it comes with that, which is a functional OBD-II port. So, the new direction of my entire build is now going to be installing this ALH TDI into my right-hand drive TJ Wrangler. Now, no one currently makes an adapter for an ALH TDI to a Ford 6R80 6-speed automatic, which is why I have commissioned KubotaSwappers to make me that adapter. He's already got an initial design for the adapter, and we are hoping to have it here at my garage in less than 2 weeks, if all the measurements and everything aligns correctly and everything works. So when that gets here, I'll be installing this. I have to figure out how to mount the engine, and I'm pretty much going to run this engine as stock. Now, I did get a tune, so this is going to be a little bit more powerful than stock, but this engine has way less horsepower and torque than the potential horsepower and torque of my Kubota V2403. Let me put this away real quick. Alright, let's go over some of the differences between the Kubota V2403 and the ALH TDI. We have been estimating the horsepower and torque of my Kubota engine this entire time. I have a IDI, or an indirect injection motor, but we kind of knew that around 25 psi of boost, I was going to be around 150 horsepower and well north of 300 foot-pounds of torque, somewhere in the 320 foot-pounds of torque range. Going over to the ALH TDI, in stock form, it was a 90 horsepower engine with 155 foot-pounds of torque. Now, I got a Stage 1 tune for this motor. The Stage 1 tune boosts me from 90 horsepower to 110 horsepower and 155 foot-pounds of torque to 188 foot-pounds of torque. The other major difference between these two motors are the strokes. This is a long stroke diesel. This is a short stroke diesel. Now, the big difference, and I am by no means a diesel expert, but I know this engine really well. I don't know all engines, but what I can tell you is this is a long stroke, all mechanical diesel, which means I have adjusted the governor spring in it, so it has a max RPM of theoretically 3,300 RPM from what I have seen in actual driving scenarios, about 3,000 RPM. Now, the TDI being a short stroke diesel means it doesn't have the low end grunt that the Kubota has, but it has a maximum RPM of 4,500 RPM versus the 3,300 RPM. I have to admit, The timing stinks. I almost had this done, but I'd also be lying if I said I wasn't really excited about swapping directions on my diesel swap, because my initial goals for the swap was to double the fuel economy of the original 4-liter inline 6, to have working cruise control, because that is something I use all the time on all my daily drivers. The last thing I really want is working AC in my diesel swapped vehicle. A lot of times I see a lot of people do these diesel swaps, but they don't have a lot of the creature comforts, and that's something I've really wanted to tackle from day one of this entire project. Now, this motor mount plate here and here were supplied from KubotaSwappers. This I ended up using to hold the water tank for my water-to-air intercooler, but this plate was actually designed for the earlier style AC systems on Jeep Cherokees and Jeep Wranglers. So I did have the plan at some point to relocate this water tank and install AC on this. I also had a couple ideas on how I might be able to do a cruise control, but I never, again, got this engine running to the point where I could figure that out. Now, the TDI is actually really good because it already has all the accessories. It has a power steering, it has an alternator, it has an AC compressor. All I really have to do is figure out how to connect the Volkswagen AC compressor to my Jeep's AC system that's already there. The other reason I'm really excited about this engine is this engine is drive-by-wire, not drive-by-cable. And that's important because I was able to order, with that standalone wiring harness I showed you earlier, the inputs for the cruise control. So just by switching to the ALH TDI engine, I am going to have cruise control. The trick is going to be mating it to my factory buttons on my steering wheel. But that's going to be a very solvable problem. So I am going to be down on horsepower. I am going to be down on torque. However, running this ALH TDI is going to allow me to pass inspection. It's going to allow me to hit the fuel economy goals. And I'm going to have cruise control. And I'm going to be able to fix AC at some point. Or sorry, figure out. That's what I meant. So that's what I'm doing with the ALH. And that's going to be the new build in my 2006 right-hand drive TJ Wrangler. So the question now is, what are we doing with the Kubota? And the answer is, I am giving this engine with a whole bunch of parts to my best friend Jacob, and we are going to be installing this engine in his 1990 YJ Jeep Wrangler Islander. And we're doing that because it's a 1990 model, which originally came with a carburetor, and because it is a pre-1996 vehicle, it never had OBD-II. So I am giving him most of the components I had for my original driveline in my TJ Wrangler. So we're going to be hooking this engine up to a AW4 4-speed automatic out of a Jeep Cherokee, but we're not going to be using the early Rennick style one, which is what I originally had. We are going to be going and using the later style one, which I had picked up and originally contemplated installing in this thing last October, almost a year ago now. And we're also not going to be running the low stall torque converter. I have a brand new heavy duty stock stall torque converter that we will be installing, and then we'll be mating that to his factory MP231 transfer case. So we are not getting rid of the Kubota. The Kubota is still going to be used. It's just going in a YJ Wrangler versus a TJ Wrangler. And the other reason we also think this is going to work is because the gearing in his Wrangler seems to be more ideal for the Kubota engine with the AW4. Specifically, he has an axle ratio of 3.55 versus my 3.73 in my TJ Wrangler. So when he's trying to go highway speeds, which I consider 55 to 60 miles per hour, he'll be in third gear torque converter lockup, which will put him right at 2,000 RPM, which I know from experience this engine loves. And once he gets to about 63, 64 miles per hour, which is going to be right at the upper RPM limit for this motor in third gear, he'll be able to go into fourth gear unlocked and have what I like to call an interstate gear. The other thing we are going to be doing is going to an air-to-air intercooler setup for his, because I think it will just be easier, and I think the air-to-air is going to work better with this mechanically injected diesel. So yeah, instead of trying to build one diesel swapped Wrangler, I'm now building 2 diesel swapped Wranglers at the same time. This is going to get very interesting. We're probably going to be bouncing videos of working on Jacob's YJ and my TJ. But anyway, it's YouTube. You know what to do. Take out more than you bring. Tread lightly, and I'll see you very soon. Goodbye.